Thank you very much. And I can't believe we're into our third segment, and I'm barely touching all the questions I have for the Blount family. And I'm sure I won't get through it all. Being a family business, I want to start with performance. And to be fifth generation, I'd like to ask both of you, how do you measure performance and reward performance and make it look objective in a family business?
Yeah, I can start with that. I mean, we've been fortunate enough, even from my father's kind of era, that we have had great numbers to even see, right? A lot of family, I work with a business who they didn't even have their financial statements, quite frankly. They knew them, but they couldn't print them out. So having those available, and as Stephen mentioned in a previous segment, that we are transparent, and that allows for more people to see those. It also helps them get better, not just the absolute numbers, but actually the process, because different departments have access to them. But we have always focused on production efficiency. We use a lot of the same metrics, even though we have completely different products, on how much things cost per pound. We've been a sales growth company, so we put a significant emphasis on growth, and we pay our commissions only on growth. And lastly, quality. We have a very good consumer response function, so we can measure people who complain and compliment us, and we can review those on a monthly basis. But one of the cool things is, Stephen was actually in sales and was paid only on growth. What was that like, Stephen?
Well, Todd, since we were growing every year at 20% plus for the years I was in there, it was pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, I think the only thing you missed there is the GO program in general for our employees, that we do set goals ahead of time for the year. They're very clear and open, and we track them. So everybody has a chance to make a year-end bonus based on those goals, we call them. So it's out there. The management teams come up with what the goals and objectives should be, and then everybody's got a shot to achieve those goals. And then based on profitability and how we finish as a company is all tied in to those year-end bonuses.
How important has your banking, legal, and business advisory services been to the success of the business, and how have you structured those relationships?
As long as I can just stay out of the way. No, just kidding, Brian. We rely on them. It's interesting. We have a very strong accounting firm in Rhode Island, DeSanto and Partners. They, while we've in some ways maybe outgrown them, you might say, the value of continuity far outweighs the value of kind of shape, size, and capabilities. So what we've done the same thing with our banking relationship. On one side, it is a little less like the old days, like dinners and lunches and what else can we do. It's much more performance-based now. But at the same time, as I've mentioned in a previous segment, that we went through some difficult times during the supply chain, right? All those orders that weren't going to ship because supply chain problems. Well, one day they all shipped and they all arrived, and we had to pay for everything. And that put a lot of strain on our financial balance sheet, and being able to call the bank in a way that with the same people that we were dealing with in the good days just a couple of years prior was so helpful for them to understand the actual business. So we're fortunate in New England to have a lot of great banks and firms. I think that's one of the benefits of being in this area of the country. Where you can, and there's a lot of, there's less transition in those roles, I find. And if they do, they may just move to the door over, which you may work with also. So those relationships are super important, a lot of continuity, but the occasional add-on, we do add new advisors, particularly when it comes to tax, estate planning, and more complicated future issues. So we might go to a little higher level, like a PwC, with that sort of group, to help us with something a little bit more tactical that we may only do one time.
And for the business itself, business consulting with advisors who look at things like the structure of the entity, the family members, and guiding you in actions there. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've not had as much success other than Mage, of course. That's a great organization. But in general, we try and work with just smaller bips, through relationships and maybe just get a little bit of advice in smaller doses. I think because we've been very stable, we have a fairly large team. We don't feel alone. So we bounce things off, and we're very fortunate to have a very strong executive team of non-family members that are very open to candid conversations and even understanding things that I might be having to deal with, thinking through next gen, et cetera. So that's been helpful, and we also maintain a strong relationship with other family businesses. So both on the board and outside the board, particularly in the food business, the Purdue Farms family has been helpful. Miniot out in the Midwest is a meat packing firm. These other owners are extremely important resources to get advice from.
Do you meet with a group? I know you said that you had a CEO group, but does the family meet with other family businesses or?
My peer group are smaller family business in Massachusetts. And then outside of that, we do some of our food shows and trade organizations have that function. Yes.
I think we all get older, and the Family Business Association, Brian and I remember the original meetings must have been over 15, 16 years ago. So we've all gotten a little older, and I remember early meetings with Todd. Todd, how are you dealing with the next generation transition? Are you working on that already? Are you structuring it? Are the legal structures in place? Are there financing and insurance processes in place? It's such a robust issue, especially the bigger the company is, the more it becomes important to look at.
Yes. I would say we're in the middle of it, meaning we have not had any next gen come into the business other than internships and summer jobs, which I think is an important way to test some things out. Legally and functionally, the estate plan is strong, so we feel good about the actual kind of ownership side. It still has yet to play out, but the structure's in place. And then I think the important part is just kind of setting up expectations. And we're really in a mode where we don't have one single expectation that there be a future CEO in the family. Maybe not. That's fine. Take that pressure right off the table. And just to let folks manage their careers in the company and outside the company, my kids particularly, and hopefully other cousins as we kind of keep this theme going. You may have noticed we actually have personified our brands. We have the Blount Clam Shack as well as the Blount's Family Kitchen. And both Stephen and his sister Rachel are a bit the personification of those brands. And that allows other family members to get involved. And every one of our products has a family that is Blount branded, has a family member on the package that represents their personality. So we've had a lot of fun with that. And so I'm hoping between my kids and their cousins that there's ways to continue that kind of family themes. And I think consumers and customers relate to that. So that's been important to us. But yeah, we're just beginning the next gen process. And Jeffrey, quite frankly, we're going to need some help. As soon as you finish the last one, you better be working on the other one at the same time. That's what
people have always asked me the simple question, when do you start? And I always say yesterday, because you have to make room for things not going the way you want them to go and adjustments. But Steve, I opened up and Brian, the whole estate planning legal structure. Do you want to follow up with questions?
Well, I just wanted to go back to the issue of what you said about the branding. I was just curious how you engaged your family. Could you expand on that for one sec?
Yeah, Stephen can help me with that.
Where do you want to start?
Just what it is and what you're trying to do, which seems very creative.
Over the years, we've always done what we call private label. So we put soup and products in other people's brands, primarily grocery store brands. I think, Todd, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, I think we started trying to kind of dip our toe in the water with a Blount branded product on the shelf. And we had some things that kind of launched, but didn't quite launch. And we tried to grow the family name locally outwards to a national stage. We really got kind of, I would say, a little bit of luck, a little bit of good planning, and a little bit of the quality of the product. with our Blount Clam Shack branded seafood soup line. COVID had hit. People were looking for things to put on the shelf. We had got that brand going, and we were able to keep supply chain moving. So we were one of the few companies that were able to fulfill orders. So when retailers were really looking to fill real estate on the shelves, the Clam Shack brand was available and ready to go. So that helped kind of catapult that brand outside of just being a local brand to more of a national brand. It's now the Todd #2 soup brand, #1 seafood brand, soup brand in the country. And I guess we say #3 soup brand overall. And I think a lot of that, it's all about the story, the packaging. It's we have a Clam Shack in Warren, Rhode Island, so it's kind of based off of a clam shack, a real location, the family history, being in the seafood business since the 1880s. The story is really authentic, and I think the product kind of it delivers on those promises to the consumer. So that's been one brand that's really taken off. And Todd, you should tell the story of the Blount Family Kitchen.
Well, I'll just simply say that, how we engage with the brands is through social media. So Stephen and I have our own social media site, Clam Shack Nation, which we'll be recording later outside. And then we also, the total family with Blount's Family Kitchen. So to answer your question, we really use our own personal stories into the products and then use social media. And we engage outside help as well, but we want to make sure that, at all levels. So the next gen's going to have to think through that. What does it mean for them, and how can they blend their personality with the products? For sure, consumers connect with products that connect to the family. We only want to launch products that we might bring home ourselves and have some experience with. So it's been a lot of fun. It definitely makes coming to work more fun when you have a lot on the line, so to speak. If the product doesn't taste right, or there's something wrong, you're going to be on it.
Just going back to the estate planning component that Jeffrey had mentioned, I think with major legislation expiring this year and new legislation likely to be passed before the end of the year, I would just comment that it's a process. It's not an end point. And that from what I heard you say, Todd, having family members prepared with the possibility of professional outside management also there to run the business, those are critical milestones to have in place for ongoing success of the business. So kudos to you for recognizing and having that in place. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments on sort of the future as you go forward with technology and how that might impact the business.
Are you thinking technology? You mean actually in helping run the business?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, primarily in operations, we've got the thing. Really, it's about not so much AI at this point in production, although I'm sure that's going to help us with our forecasting and obviously some of our daily tasks that we all do. But our primary use of technology is in robotics and automation. The equipment is much more expensive. It takes way longer to get made, but the impact has been substantial. And while we love our employees and we want them all to succeed, I'd rather them run a sophisticated machine than to manually do something with the product, right? So that allows for higher paid jobs at the same time, better throughput, in many cases, higher quality, although a little bit more barrier to entry because the technology is expensive and it becomes hard for the next person, which helps us put a little bit of a moat around our business. So it's happening. You have to be careful because if you automate too much, that one thing that you had as flexibility as the consumer changes, you're like, no, I got to put it in this cup because I got a machine that makes 1 million of these cups a minute. So we're always balancing flexibility with technology. On the AI side, I think quite frankly, it's a little bit just dip your toe in the water, but to be careful that we don't go too far. And it's really helping us mostly with making tasks easier, job descriptions, lessons plans, pulling together data. We do a lot of surveys internally, both for our employees and for our customers, and just using AI to summarize and to just sometimes actually take some of our own bias out of some of these situations. So it's been fun to just see where technology is going.
Excellent. Getting back to the family estate planning side, what's your feelings about spouses in the business?
Wow, I love Jeffrey. You didn't tell me these questions are going to be so personal. Spouses in the business. I mean, I have two theories. One, the more the better. Two, just as an employee relations point of view, we have a lot of couples who have actually met in the business, some even families. So we're, it's Valentine's Day, at least here on the recording of this podcast. And so we're, lovers, not fighters. That being said, I think careful on the kind of the estate plan and how spouses all come together, and just being thoughtful of that, depending on what era and gen we're in. And if they can be part of the business, I think that's great. But again, they follow the same process of bringing a family member in the business. So qualified, work for somebody else. Don't talk about the individuals, all those, whether you're a spouse or a direct family descendant. So that's been important to us.
That goes for ex-spouses as well, right?
Yeah, at that point they'd just be a contributor, right? And everybody's got to make their own way. Everybody gets like one bonus token as a family member, but you need 10 tokens to do the job. So you only get one extra. So if that can keep you doing great, then you're doing great otherwise. And we've had to, make tough decisions and have tough conversations. And while that's not my favorite part of the job, it can be done.
You both have wives in the business at times?
My wife just started. Steven's still on his own, although he's got a sister there. So that adds its own family fun.
Well, I have a wife. She just doesn't work at Blount.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. You opened up my next thought, and that is something that families struggle with all the time, and that is when you have a family member that shouldn't be in the family business and how it's dealt with. And too often, family members who shouldn't be in the business, and I think all this panel has seen that, they're never let go and they're always kept, and the problem just continues to grow and grow. I'm just wondering if you've had to deal with that, or if you're structured to deal with something like that.
We're fortunate enough to have two things on our favor. One is generally everybody's working for somebody else, so they're kind of a little bit of their own performance review. But in the past, when we were smaller, two other kind of tools. One is what I call the glide path. And the glide path is particularly if someone's getting closer to retirement, but maybe not growing with the speed of the business, is to make sure that they have meaningful responsibility, but it can be in a diminishing way. So that's good for them, both for flexibility and stress, and good for the company because we get the benefit of their experience. And then if it was for for someone not in that situation, we also are large enough now that we have multiple departments. Even for a non-family member, we like all employees to feel that there's a personal relationship. So while we have a strict performance management process with evaluations and that sort of thing, I always, before we let somebody go, ask the team, could this person do well in another department? And then I ask, does anybody want to interview this person? And I would do the same thing with the family member, because we found several times that a couple of small moves make a huge difference. Sometimes it works, and then of course sometimes it doesn't.
Any problems with entitlement in family members, and how would one handle it if there was?
We're just leading by example through significant humility where possible. So if someone's parking in the front by the front door and I'm parking in the back, I think if they don't figure that out, I'm going to have to make some stronger hints.
Well, this has all been very motivational, at least for me, after watching families for my whole career, hundreds of families, and having a family like the Blount family that we can promote to businesses about how things can be done right. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank the panel, but I am going to turn it over to Jillian King, our producer. Jillian, it's all in your hands now.
Thank you, everyone. What an important conversation for family businesses. That wraps up this final segment of our Spring 2025 FBA Family Business Panel discussion. Thank you to all our listeners and viewers who have tuned in for this panel. Be sure to check out parts 1 and 2 and click subscribe just below the video if you're on YouTube, or follow if you're listening on one of our podcast platforms to stay up to date on all our postings as they go live. If you're a fan of our videos, please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and press the bell button. It helps immensely. Radio Entrepreneurs is also active on LinkedIn, so be sure to follow our page there as well for more business advice and discussions. Until next time, goodbye and thanks for listening. We'll be back with more stories on Radio Entrepreneurs.